Think about it for a second. Your TV remote, your smartphone, your laptop, maybe even your car. They're all powered by batteries. We rely on them constantly. But for most of us, they're just this little black box, right? We use it till it's dead, then we swap it out. Well, today, we're going to crack that box wide open and find out what's really going on inside. Yeah, have you ever really stopped to wonder about that? How does this little cylinder of metal and chemicals just hold on to energy and then unleash it the very instant you need it? It's pretty incredible when you stop and think. And that's the big mystery we're going to solve together in this explainer. Now, you might think batteries are a pretty modern invention, but nope. The core idea is actually over 200 years old. It all kicked off way back in 1800 with something called the voltaic pile, which was basically just a stack of metal discs and salty paper. From there, things got more reliable, but the real game changer was the dry cell in the late 1800s. That's what finally made portable power a real thing, and that long road of innovation led us all the way to the lithium-ion batteries that are in everything we own today, a technology so important it won a Nobel Prize in 2019.
All right, so here's our game plan for figuring all this out. First, we're going to look inside the battery to meet the key players. Then we'll dive into the chemical engine that actually creates the power. We'll see how the circuit works, figure out why batteries eventually die, and then we'll wrap it all up with 5 main takeaways. Let's get into it.
So let's imagine we can just peel away the metal casing on a battery. What would we find? Well, it turns out that whether it's a tiny one for your watch or a massive one for a car, every battery boils down to 3 fundamental parts that have to work together perfectly.
First up, you have the anode. This is the negative side, the one with the minus sign. The easiest way to think about it is as the source. It's made of a material that is just itching to give away its electrons. This is where the whole energy-releasing process really begins. And on the other side, we've got the cathode. This is the positive terminal. So, if the anode is the source, the cathode is the destination. Its job is to attract and accept all those electrons. It's this powerful pull, this attraction between the two sides, that creates the electrical pressure that drives everything.
So what keeps the anode and cathode from just touching and shorting out? That would be the electrolyte. You can think of it as a very picky gatekeeper. It sits in the middle and physically blocks the electrons from just shooting straight across. But, and this is key, it does allow other charged particles, called ions, to pass through. That's going to be super important in a minute. So let's make this real. Think about a regular AA alkaline battery. Inside that little steel can, the anode is a paste made from zinc powder. The cathode is a mixture of manganese oxide and graphite. And that gatekeeper, the electrolyte, is a paste of potassium hydroxide, an alkaline substance, which is exactly where the battery gets its name. All of this is held in place by a paper separator that keeps the two ends from touching, but lets those crucial ions through. Okay, so we've met the players, but how do they actually create power? Well, this is where the chemistry gets really cool. A battery is basically a tiny, perfectly self-contained chemical engine designed to do one thing: turn chemical energy into electrical energy. The process that runs this engine has a bit of a sciencey name, a redox reaction. Now, I know that sounds complicated, but it's really just a shorter way of saying reduction and oxidation. All it really describes is the movement of electrons from one chemical to another. That's it. And here's how those 2 parts work. At the anode, the source, we get oxidation. That just means it's losing electrons. The zinc in our battery literally lets its electrons go free. At the same time, at the cathode, the destination, we get reduction. That means it's gaining electrons. The manganese oxide on that side is just scooping them up. It's a perfect exchange. One side loses, the other side gains. Now here's the crucial part. This chemical reaction starts happening the moment the battery is made, before you even connect anything. The anode starts releasing electrons, and they all begin to pile up at the negative terminal. This creates a huge imbalance, a surplus of negative charge on one side and a lack of it on the other. That imbalance, that electrical pressure, is what we call voltage. It's stored energy, like a stretched rubber band, just waiting to be released. Of course, that stored energy can't do anything until we give it a path. So when we put the battery into a device and turn it on, we're finally letting that stretched rubber band snap back. And when that happens, 2 different things start flowing at the exact same time. The first flow is what we all think of as electricity. The second you complete that circuit, all those electrons that were piled up at the anode rush out. They travel through the wires of your device, lighting up the bulb or spinning the motor as they race towards their final destination, the positive cathode, which is ready to welcome them.
But here's the other half of the story, the part that happens inside the battery. As all those negative electrons leave the anode, they leave behind positive particles, those ions we talked about. To keep the whole system balanced, those ions have to travel through the electrolyte gatekeeper over to the cathode. This internal flow is absolutely essential.
And this is the absolute key takeaway. You need both of these flows for a battery to work. You've got electrons flowing outside the battery, powering your device, and at the same time, you have ions flowing inside the battery, keeping the chemical reaction going. It's a perfectly synchronized dance. If you break either one of those paths, the whole system just stops cold.
Of course, we all know this dance doesn't last forever. Sooner or later, the battery goes dead. But what does that really mean? The energy doesn't just vanish. It's actually a lot simpler. The battery just runs out of its chemical fuel.
Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine the chemicals in a brand new battery are like a big pile of Lego bricks. As the battery works, the chemical reaction takes those fresh bricks, the reactants, and uses them to build something new. But eventually, you've used up all your original pieces. They're all locked into this new structure. You have no more bricks to build with. The reaction stops. That's a dead battery.
And this Lego analogy perfectly explains the difference between disposable batteries and rechargeable ones. In a disposable or primary battery, once you've built that Lego structure, it's permanent. The reaction is a one-way street. But in a rechargeable or secondary battery, the chemistry is designed to be reversible.
When you plug in your phone to charge it, you're essentially using electricity to break that Lego structure apart and put all the original bricks back in their piles. You're forcing the chemical reaction to run in reverse. But the process isn't perfect. Every time you do this, a few of those Lego bricks might get a little worn down or misplaced. The materials degrade just a tiny bit. And over time, that's why even rechargeable batteries eventually lose their ability to hold a full charge. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, from anodes and cathodes to this whole two-way flow. So let's just boil it all down to the 5 most important things to remember about how a battery works. Here we go. Number 1, a battery is simply a device that converts chemical energy into electrical energy. Number 2, it's always built around 3 core parts: the anode, the cathode, and the electrolyte. Number 3, power requires 2 synchronized flows: electrons moving through your device and ions moving inside the battery. Number 4, the engine is a redox reaction, where the anode loses electrons and the cathode gains them. And finally, number 5, batteries die when their chemical fuel runs out. Recharging just resets that chemical reaction, but it gets a little less perfect each time.
And that really brings us to the future. I mean, these basic principles we've talked about have powered technology for centuries. But now we're asking so much more. We need batteries for electric cars that go for days, and even massive batteries to store renewable energy for entire cities. The demands are exploding, and all over the world, scientists are racing to create the next generation of batteries, ones that are safer, charge faster, and hold way more power. So the next time you pick up your phone, just appreciate that tiny chemical engine for a second and get excited for what's coming next.